Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And we return with our spoiler-filled review of Zach Creggers' Weapons.
That's it. We are, getting into the nitty-gritty of this absolute banger with our full thoughts on it, because it was really hard to talk about it without going into depth.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the trailer didn't really give away much of what happened, but I also feel like it's best to go into this pretty blind about what is happening.
Yeah.
And just watching it unfold in its kind of really strange, interesting way, and it's kind of fucking mental at some moments of it.
It is. It's an insane mix. We talked in the spoiler-free episode, like, of the things we could talk about, kind of thing. There are a few spoiler things in the trailer, and when you look back at the trailer, you're like, it's kind of actually weird. I saw the trailer on TV, and I was like, it's actually weird how many things it's actually really being like, this is what it is. It actually points to a lot of stuff that's like, I was like, actually, even their posters. The posters when they released for this film, it's like so many of them are just like, those are the key. Like, these 4 images basically sum up the plot of this film.
Yeah.
Like the one that had like chicken soup.
I saw that
the
plant.
Yeah, the symbol and stuff like that. And you're like, I see, okay.
But it wouldn't mean anything until you've watched the film.
It doesn't, but that's why it's quite clever that you're like, what does all this mean? What do all these symbols? What do these children disappearing at 2:17 a.m. mean? You know, what do all these facts kind of come together? And we did talk about also the fact that in some ways, though, the marketing and the trailer slightly sold this as a slightly different kind of, a much more thriller than... Yeah. It is that. It is still that film, but it's not exactly that film. It's one of those, like, where we said Prisoners was our example of, like, if people walk in thinking they're about to see a Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman showdown of a real tense, fully kind of darker, kind of very cop thriller. Yeah, that's not what you're really getting here. You're getting, I think his was Magnolia. Yeah, the Paul Thomas Anderson film, which had Tom Cruise in it, where it's like multiple different perspectives on, like, they kind of somewhat interlink in a weird way. This one obviously interlinks in a much more way than that one. That was more of a theoretical idea of a film kind of thing, but this one has that same weird perspective, which is one of those things, and it's one of those things that out of everything that I've seen that people have been mixed on, where people will make like, I think this would have worked better in a linear fashion, and then a lot of people are like, actually this works from the perspectives. I'm very much on the side of, I think the way that he's done it is what makes it feel different.
Yeah, I think it's so fantastic. Yeah, because I watched it for this another time. I said to you, like, as soon as it was done, we got home to record the spoiler, the spoiler-free episode. And my wife was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it was great. I was going to see if we could go see it tomorrow." But we did end up kind of watching it yesterday, Tuesday, day before, and it was just incredible to see it again. But there were things that I kind of didn't pick up on the first time, because obviously I wasn't aware of what's happening, but also that narrative style, and watching it with somebody who obviously hadn't seen it before, it was really interesting to see what she thought of it, and how bits and pieces get picked up on. Like, I didn't notice the first time. I noticed it the second time, is when she meets Paul in the bar. And he comes in and he's got like a bandage on his finger. She does say, like, what's up with your hand? But it's such like a throwaway line the first time, you don't really realise it. Oh yeah. And there's bits and pieces like that kind of you soon find out. It's
100%. I can fully see. Like, I was ready to go and rewatch it again. I just didn't get a chance to, but I still think I will try to in the next week or so to go and see it again, because when you design films like this where scenes work into each other, there's no way not to go back and go, oh shit, that was there, and there's that, he's already set up with that, or oh look, that character's just walked around the corner, and then later we actually see them be there. And some of them are obvious issue.
Yeah, so you don't, and that's, it's so obvious, but I only noticed it the second time, because when the little girl's kind of narrating, all of the girls got up and everybody ran out apart from one kid, and they asked him loads. There's a shot of him sat on a sofa and his parents are beside him, and then it kind of shows him talking to a police officer, and Aunt Gladys is beside him. And I didn't notice the first time watching it because you're not looking out for her bright hair or anything like that. It was only this time I was like, fuck, she is like right there in the first like 2 minutes.
It's because when she is introduced in the film, to start with, it's in very kind of,
it's in these weird.
It's glaringly flashes. It stands out in this very it almost feels out of place.
Yeah.
Like when you see her, you're like, what the fuck is like? Okay, where are we going with it? Like that.
So weird.
The first time, not the first time, you see her in odd shots, but the first time you properly see her, say in the forest, and you see a full on almost view of her, you're like, the fuck is this? What's Ronald McDonald doing?
Yeah.
Is this? And when you first see her, you're like, oh shit! I remember my mind being like, okay, okay, I'm gonna go with this, even though part of my instinct straight away is to go that looks fucking ridiculous. And my brain is going I'm not how are we going to make that scary? And it does make it scary.
Yeah, it does.
But when you first see it, it's jarring. You're
it's
like,
so
shit,
weird.
what?
Because she's also in the 2 jump scares where Lisa Gandhi is trying to sleep, and then she's on the ceiling, and there where Josh Brolin has the nightmare, and it's comes in as the as the kid, and you're like, what is that? And then you see it when when James, the drug user, is kind of walking through the forest, and you're like, the fuck is this? It's so jarring. But one thing I noticed watching it back for the second time, and I don't know whether this is because I was having so much fun with it, but it's 2 hours and 8 minutes long. I know because we went to see it quite late, so we got back really late. And
it should have been 2 hours and 17 minutes, just saying.
Yeah, it should have. That would have worked.
That should have been the. You should have just added it on. Just throw some extra shit in there, just to make it exactly 2:17.
Just to make it. But it's actually really quick. It feels like it only lingers on people for 10 minutes.
I think it's only the opening parts that feel as slow. Once it properly gets into it, it starts to feel like it really goes.
Yeah.
Especially that the third act, if you can call it that in this weird fashion, but the third act of the main story feels really fast. It's only, I'd say, from the beginning with what's Julia
Lisa Gandhi. I think it's Lisa.
Yeah. Lisa Gandhi, hers to begin with feels a little bit okay, this is a lot slower than maybe, which shouldn't be, because Barbarian is very slow at the beginning as well. It's very slow paced, and then it builds, and then again, it's where the fuck did the third act come from, kind of thing. And that's what that film goes with. It has the same kind of very clever questions that you're constantly asking about. In that one, it's Bill Skarsgård. Well, you're the fucking Pennywise. You've got to be evil. You've got to be an absolute.
You're a Skarsgård.
You're absolutely about to rape someone.
Yeah, you're naughty.
or Justin Long. You're absolutely going to get your eyes pulled out because Jeepers Creepers.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's just what happened. So, yeah, so those things are in your head with that. But yeah, it is quite clever the way that he has thought about building these kind of films. I love the fact I actually heard that he literally this film literally came out with when he started writing it, and he didn't have an idea about anything except for that, just basically that opening thing of someone telling this story, a child telling a story about a school. That's all he started with. He said it just weirdly came out of nowhere. It's what happens if that child, and then it came what happened if that child's in the class, and it just started going in there until I guess the whole what most of us would probably say around the Pied Piper kind of thing. Yeah. That kind of idea that started to develop more, and the mixing of the lore of say witches mixed in with the Pied Piper of Hamelin and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Those things are referenced. Not that he's exactly referenced that those are those things. They're just what people are pulling from. That there's a very kind of, the story of children being taken by someone is always going to be linked to Pied Piper.
Yeah, of course, man.
Then this way that he's reinvented it in this modern kind of lore.
I know you shared it on our Instagram today, which is @CMTH Podcast. If you are following us, go and follow us and hit that subscribe button whilst you're at it. See, a sneaky one for them. You mentioned about the cast who they were originally going to be. So
we said that in spoiler free.
Yeah, we had Pedro Pascal who was in it. Yeah. Some other people whose names escape me.
That's discount Josh Brolin anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been like, I don't think it would have been quite as good a film.
I like Pedro, but I gotta be honest, there's very few roles where it's like Gladiator 2. Yeah, I'd take Josh Brolin anyway. I like him, but I'll take Josh Brolin. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, Josh Brolin.
I'll tell you who actually is a bit like you get like Pokemon evolutions. Josh Brolin's he's like the end result. The middle one, who then becomes Josh Brolin, would be like Ethan Hawke. Like they're kind of like similar vibes. So I imagine Ethan Hawke would have also been in this film had it been like Lionsgate Productions or something.
Yeah.
But Josh Brolin is just a fucking absolute shagger, and he's so good in this film.
He is, yeah, he's great. Throwing shade at old Pedro Pascal, he's great. He's a great actor as well.
He is.
It just is different levels of different people. We talked about like the Hugh Jackman comparison as well from Prisoners and being like that. Except with Hugh Jackman, like none of the rest of them could pull off what he can with singing.
But I feel like Archer, Josh Brolin's character, he is like. You understand why he is kind of his kid's gone missing, so you understand why he's so dedicated and why he's kind of not why he's doing this. But he's also a bit of a fucking asshole, you know. And we touched on it in our spoiler-free one, and we couldn't really go into it. And this is just to jump around the film, but I mentioned about the character's motivations in this, and right at the very end, and this is literally like the last 3 minutes, whatever. Once everything's been resolved, and the two characters, Lisa and Archer, are kind of, the witch is gone, and they're left to kind of check on the children. Lisa runs straight upstairs and she checks on Alex, and then Archer doesn't give a fuck about Alex or what's going on. He just runs out, doesn't even care about Lisa. He just leaves her to go and find his own kid, Matt.
Yeah, and once he gets him, he just runs.
He just runs.
He doesn't stay around to be like. It was one thing. Like I get it with the character, but it was one thing where I was just like, I get. I mean, it matches with his character, so I get the motivation. I can't say if I'm thinking in a realistic fashion that anybody would just go, right, we've got all these kids here, we've got the aftermath of all this, I'm just going to fucking take my kid and just run. But he has been motivated by that one thing has been the linchpin of his life this entire film. So I understand the motivation.
And that's it. And I feel like it is a very like human thing to be like, fuck, this has happened. My kid is the one that I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And to go. And when you're making, when you're making anything creatively, there's a bit in you that wants to do like the Hollywood. Like you want him to go up with Lisa Gandhi and to check Alex is fine.
You want Josh Brolin to be the hero, the saviour, when he's not.
When he's not. When he's there for his own character, and that he gets
the much more fucked up one who really shouldn't be anyone's saviour, and she's not a saviour, but like she's closer to almost the actual. The whole film is about from at the beginning anyway, in her section, is about the fact that she is being deemed this absolute mess of a person. She is a mess of a person, but she's not a bad teacher or carer. She actually does care about these children, possibly a little bit too much, what we find out. But she does actually care, and she had no ill will, but everyone else obviously thinks, including Archer himself, believes that she is, and he is so motivated by his own distress and loss that he cannot see past that. And yes, there is also a bit of a social commentary and all like that feels to be in there of the idea that people are so taken by like he's the guy that can step up and be. But in a normal film, he's the guy that would step up and be, we need to do this together, we need to do we need to go together. No, he is the guy that steps up in a very much of a modern framing to step up and go, I have no proof, but she did it.
She did it. Yeah.
Like, I've got nothing to say, but in this current world that we live in, yeah, fucking she did it, right?
She did it.
She had to do it. It's it. Like, yeah, it's the witch's trial, and you know what I mean. He is the guy that does that. So there's no. We start to like, and he is mainly unlikable, but once he gets onto the trail of investigation, their worlds meet, and they are kind of bonded together through this one idea that no one else actually is following. No one else is doing anything else to really pull this along, except they've both got an idea and they're both there. That's the only reason that he gives up on his vendetta against her, is because, oh shit, you're actually listening to this.
Yeah.
No one else fucking listens to me. No one else wants to even help me. Justin Long barely did shit.
Yeah.
And it's cameo.
And if you watch it as like an actual, when you watch it the second time back, you realise just how quick the film happens. Like effectively, the events of the film are obviously all happening kind of at once.
Yeah.
But it's basically like it opens up. They have the school teachers meeting. He paints her car, and then the next day he's like, "Oh, I'm just gotta like trace a line where all of these kids are running in. Oh, I circled around this house. Oh, like the principal tried to kill her. Do you know about this? Yeah. Yes. Oh, it's that house. Let's go." Like, it's actually, it takes place in like the span of like 2 days. So it's actually a really quick film.
It is really quick. It's from a linear point of view. It is all of those things click and happen in some ways far, like, actually, like, it's one of those things where if you're from the enjoyment and the way that the film is structured, it completely makes things work that probably from a linear fashion would actually have had to take over longer and actually be. It's a framing device that hides a lot of plot holes. Yeah. The film is absolutely like the film, and Zach Creggers himself has admitted the film is full of plot holes.
Yeah,
there are and lots of people are now starting to like talk about a lot of areas where they're like, well, that person couldn't have been there at this point because that doesn't make any sense. The one that Zach Creggers pointed out himself was the fact that the boy would have had to come home in that police car, that when that police car is basically sat out there that entire time, including the fact that when Josh Brolin and that thing, they should have actually intertwined at an actually much earlier point in the film. The little boy would have come home from school and seen that police car much earlier in the day and much later in the day, and it doesn't make any sense of when he got dragged out the car. How long is it that they're in that car between the place when most of this feels like it's mainly over like a
2
short
days,
period of days? Yeah.
If that.
But how long is that car sat outside from being there like early in the day to there to like darkness? And they're just like, a lot of characters should have seen this or noticed this at actually intertwining times. But I think from Zach Creggers' point of view, of what he said is, yeah, we could have these, and I admit that there are. He's like, they are there. He's like, those plot holes are absolutely there. But within the enjoyment of the thing, if you really have to pick it all apart, then fine. But within the enjoyment of the actual film, it works creatively as a narrative.
Yeah.
And it works as an enjoyable thing. And then I guess there's a little bit of a, like, where even he's admitted, we're in a little bit of a social society now where films start out as something really, and then people can't help but start to pick it and pick it and pick it.
Yeah.
Every film has plot holes, to be fair. He's just acknowledging that this one, the more you look into it, the more you might start to spot that certain timelines don't make much sense at all. But he said, well, the thing is, though, that from an enjoying what the character and the mystery, it works on the screen. It just doesn't necessarily after millions of viewings that you might start to be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But he's just from a kind of like, do you care that much if you enjoyed it? Do you know that? And that's what I kind of liked to hear, that he's been very forthcoming with the fact that he's like, yeah, I don't even know all the plot holes in this film, but yeah, they're there. I could tell you multiple plot holes that are in this film, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment and actually the impact of the film's final result. Yeah, things don't all work out, and it never is. When you've got to tell 5 different, is it 5? 5 different characters?
Yeah, 5, 6.
Yeah, each of their like kind of perspectives on things. It's very hard to ever make that complete work, but it's also what makes this weirdly have this enthralling detail, because you're being like slowly fed information and you're slowly finding things out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you'd done this in a more linear fashion, a lot of this information would have been very early on. And I said in the spoiler free, one of the things I actually find most enjoyable is the fact that he bypasses where a lot of films wouldn't have bypassed. That whole kind of, they've gone missing, here's the police search, where's this? And instead we go to a time when actually it oddly feels like, and that's why the characters feel so tense, is because it oddly feels like this is starting to become history.
Yeah.
It's no longer prevalent. It's no longer...
It's not like quite fresh.
It is for her. It is for Archer. For other people, this is like, yeah, well, you know, we're still doing it, but there's nothing. We've got nothing. We're all starting to... Even the parents, like I mentioned, Justin Long and his wife, they oddly seem somewhat kind of like, this is horrible, but I'm starting to almost adjust to it.
Like, resided to it.
Yeah.
Just...
And Archer isn't, which is what, I guess... Without these characters, it feels very much like those kids would have just died in that basement or died somewhere else. And we would have just moved on from all of this very quickly. And the time frame with her character, Gladys's character as well, has to be quick, because she's going to not stick around for all this shit for long, because she's going to get found out and she knows it, kind of thing. So all of that helps with this kind of, it needed to be quick and contained.
Yeah,
just to sum up a weird.
No, I think it's done so well, and I think the performances carry a lot of the legwork, and it's interesting because it does kind of fit into a little bit of that thriller territory, but it's also strangely darkly comic.
Yeah,
and then there are some moments of really good kind of jump scares, but the ones that do have some tension built up to it. And the scene where James is in the house is great, when he's kind of sneaking around. There were those weird bits where it's just so, like, something's wrong, but so far you don't quite know what. And I think it does it quite well when you have kind of clocked what's happening. And I'm talking maybe from from the principal Marcus's, from his narrative. When you see Aunt Gladys, and you kind of know, okay, this is like voodoo witchcraft kind of stuff. You don't know exactly how it's happened, but that's you can kind of very much pick up on it then. That's when it starts to get obvious. That's when the gore starts to ramp up. You get, Marcus just fucking caving his husband
with his own face.
Yeah, and then you get, Gladys's death, and you get the scene with the forks in the face. Yeah. But before that, you get the surreal kind of I know something. I don't know what's wrong, but I know something's wrong. Yeah. Like the bit where Lisa Gandhi peeks through the window and sees them just sat there. That's fucking creepy. Yeah. All of the paper up on the house, the door just opening and closing into darkness, and then the scene with James where he goes into the house. It's all kind of, it plays it really well, because you know that they're in there, but you haven't seen them yet, and he's just stealing stuff, and then you see them in the background, and you're like, oh fucking hell. And Anna at this point squeezed my hand, and I was like, okay. And then the bit where he ducks down, he gets up, and then you see them get up, you're like, fucking hell. And you mentioned this in the spoiler free, and this happened exactly in ours. And watching it back and being able to notice it was just like you said, and just like I've seen online, which is where Lisa Gandhi is sat outside of the house and she's waiting, and it switches to night and she's fallen asleep, and then the door opens and everybody in the theatre was real kind of tense. Anna squeezed my hand, and then the mother walks out and she's doing that kind of walk. Yeah. And Anna looked at me and kind of laughed a little bit and was like, oh, this is fucking... weird. And I heard some people laugh in the cinema. And then she got to the car and people were like, okay. And then she walked past, and you could hear people breathe a sigh of relief almost, until they heard the back of the back door open. Yeah. And then Anna squeezed my hand again, and everybody was really tense, and I was like, fuck. It's so strange how it can just go from this moment of creepiness, oh that's this fucking weird laugh, to fucking, oh shit, it's all kicking off a bit. It's so masterfully done.
It is. I still think that the laugh is not. I don't think that the walking thing is. I still believe that scene that was not good. I don't think that was well done compared to the other actors who performed it. I still think that looks weirdly.
It looks weird.
I still think that that's a moment of people laughing because that looks pretty stupid.
But I don't know whether it's intentionally supposed to be, so that you're like. That's weird,
I can see from a view well, like how that would work out.
Because if she just walked out normally, you'd be like, okay, maybe that's a bit weird. But because she walks out like stilted and kind of like robotic and a bit puppety.
I mean, I still think when she walks out, it's tense anyway. It caused a laugh, I think, because when it looks ridiculous.
Walking. Yeah.
But it's still tense because you think she's coming straight up to the window to basically like come at her with
the knife,
the scissors. But when you first see it, it looks more like it might be a knife also. You can't really tell exactly what it is. I think the tension was there anyway, so I can get it. I can see why he may have left. He may have put that in because it's meant to cause the humour thing. I still think it looks stupid.
Yeah,
I still think people were laughing at it because they're like, that was ridiculous. The same way they laughed at Gladys, though. To be fair, in the first bit, there were people that laughed at Gladys.
Oh yeah, they laughed at it.
Those kind of parts, but like Gladys in respect of works better. But it's that bit was harder for me because the other actors who are portraying that don't do it in such a silly. They look more natural, even though they walk in an odd way. They look more naturally, like weirdly, like hypnotic and things. Yeah, just the mother just looks.
It
ridiculous.
Looked really weird, didn't it?
It was just one of those things where I just think weirdly, like it kind of pushed that level of like, is that humour or is this just looking a bit
That's
ridiculous?
What I don't.
You know what I mean?
I'm kind of
like I get it. I get why like you could subvert the like a humour out of it in order to then pull them straight back in. So it's I mean, and he does that with quite a lot of scenes in this film where it really does like. I mean, this is the good thing about it being very much like earlier in the film, feeling much more like one of those thrillers.
Yeah. Because
when it's a thriller and you don't know what's going on, that's what raises the tension. It's just there. You are tense throughout the thing, and yes, we get some of those supernatural scenes, like in Lisa Gandy's kind of part in her in one of the first kind of section we really get. Obviously, you get like the bit in the classroom with the boy that was in the trailers where he's sitting up, and you get some of those kind of
and
more like
even then he's got
like sequences.
And Gladys's makeup on.
Yeah. So you've already got you've already seen it. She was in the trailer as well, and glad like they're all there. So it's weird like to be like you're so thrown off by her. I think it's more because when she pops up in certain scenes, it's very like a weird kind of almost like seeing like it's like the 90s It with Pennywise.
A little, yeah.
It's a bit like that, like seeing her pop up in the middle of nowhere feels oddly like weird.
Yeah,
for her character to just be like stood there in the middle of a forest.
Those bright colours.
Yeah,
and that scene where James sees her in the in the woods, it did remind me of when Ben is young and he sees his dad by the entrance to the storm.
Yeah,
and that bit always terrified me. And it's just like, what the fuck? What's a clown doing here?
I 100% like the amount of things I look back at this and be like, that is so Stephen King, or not even necessarily Stephen King book. It's Stephen King's films, like films that have been made of him, like Salem's Lot and It and things like that. Just feel like they are like proper 90s.
This is good.
Not the new Salem's Lot, the original, the one that people love, the TV series. Like it's really got a lot of like that in it, kind of thing. The old school Stephen King stuff has a lot of that kind of like, oh, I can see where a lot of this. I mean, like people have pointed out that feels like it's like people being like, did Stephen King write the book of this? Like, where's the book Weapons or whatever it is? But that's just where the director's obviously taken some inspiration from. But this, I think that is the good thing. I mean, that's the interesting thing about the fact that you've seen it twice, because the thing is like for like watching other people, but I guess a lot of the tension, is somewhat built from you not knowing what the hell is going on. So I wonder on like repeat viewings, the fun of it is seeing like the stuff you missed. I just wonder how like on repeat viewing, because the one thing that has been stated like is that a lot of people feel is that compared to Barbarian, that this is a far less scary film. Yeah, it's a tense film. It's suspenseful like crazy, but it's not like a full-on scary film.
And I said that about on the spoiler one. I went to see Barbarians. I went into that blind, and for me, that was like pants-shittingly scary.
Yeah.
I was fucking terrified. And I went to see that with Anna as well, and we were both like, this is fucking horrid. Like, this is terrifying. And this one wasn't, but there were some moments that we both agreed were like, this is creepy and this is like tense.
Yeah.
And this is weird. I still feel like it's a better story, and I feel like it's better told.
Yeah.
The only thing I kind of felt watching it back was just it felt like it was in like 40 minutes. It felt like it went so quick, and I noticed how harsh some of the edits are. Like it's all very intentional, but it is literally like a character will close the door and it will just cut straight to something else.
Yeah.
And then it will cut straight to something else, and it was very harsh. And I didn't notice that the first time.
I remember it has the
it.
black. It cuts to black. Like, I remember being sat there watching like full on black when it went between like a segment to the next segment. Full on black being like, because when it first went from the opening scroll telling the story, it goes black, and it goes black for like enough time that I was there like, is this the film or the projector?
Yeah.
I was there like, is the projector broken? Like, and then obviously it did it multiple times, because every time it basically cut from one set, that was like a clear kind of, here's like a 5 seconds of blackness to be like, here's the next kind of one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite like a clear kind of boom, we're done. Boom, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, here we go to the next one kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the only thing that kind of stuck out to me really, was just how quickly the film moved. Like, it felt like the first time we watched it, it felt like there was a lot of kind of like breathing space between things.
Yeah.
Whereas like the second time, it felt like maybe it's because I knew where it was going.
Yeah.
It felt like it moved very quick. Like, it felt like everybody's story was like 5 minutes, and then the ending was like 20 minutes. And I was like, this film was like 45 minutes long.
Some of them, I remember some of them feeling very, like Lisa's felt very long to me. I remember feeling like quite like that one, but obviously I've already said that because that's like the first like slow build kind of thing. And whereas some of them like Archers, and especially is Benedict Wong? Was it
Marcus?
Marcus, yeah. Marcus's was much faster, like, but his is much more brutal. So it kind of remember it a bit more kind of thing. But some of them, like Paul's storyline, I remember feeling like that one felt really like quick.
Well, I feel like the reason, I mean, they are probably varying lengths, but I feel like the reason why that might happen is because with Lisa, we kind of see everything pretty kind of like new.
Yeah.
And then when Archer comes in, it starts to skip things.
Yeah.
So we only really see like his line at the parent-teacher kind of conference thing, whereas with Lisa we see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where with Archer we just see what he says, and then it jumps to them walking out, and then it jumps to him looking at her at the liquor store, and then him painting, and it's very cutting
because we've got that.
Because we've got it, and then. Yeah. With each of the characters,
hers
it
also
has
feels more self-contained.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas it's like much more of just her.
Yeah.
Whereas say like Archer's feels very cut up, and very much like we actually don't get that many scenes where it's just Josh Brolin, because he's interacting with so many other.
Yeah.
Like, he sees her obviously at the gas station. He goes to see the parents at the like when he's trying to gather family, or when he's seeing people at work. He feels like he's always surrounded by other people. And she's isolated, which is again the characters, because she is being at this point isolated. So we mainly only get her alone, or her with Paul, or her with the occasional things, and we don't get to see the Archer scenes and stuff because that's not it yet. Like we don't know we don't know that part of the story yet. And I guess that's the same with like Austin Abrams James.
Yeah,
that he is again an isolated character. So I don't know why hers and his in my mind felt the longest, but I think that might be because they were more slower drawn out.
I think,
and they don't have as much information around them kind of thing, whereas I think the other ones like Archers and Marcus, I think they feel more cut up because they're almost the ones that are like filling in gaps in the story, whereas I think I remember Lisa's and James feeling, because they almost felt like their own more independent story that then linked into the other stories, where I felt like, especially Josh Brolin felt like, because he's the one that's meant to be kind of intercepting between everyone, his felt like his was the most like where he's been spread between people. And
quite
his is
scattered.
not like so much his own. Even though yes, there's lots of stuff in there where he's like looking for a son, but even stuff like that, it is still very contained to these characters, outside of these main ones we follow. So like for instance, like Josh Brolin's wife is like there for like a scene or two.
I'm going to work.
Like, I'm going to work. Like there's no like, oh, what's the impact of the wife in this situation? Her child's gone as well. There's none really like delving into any of that kind of thing. Like, or even that with any of the other parents. He very much seems to particularly avoid that kind of element of it. Outside of Josh Brolin's very, what he is thinking and what he is doing and what he is feeling. The rest of the parents like don't really get a chance to have an edge way in kind of thing.
Well, I guess that would kind of maybe mess it up the narrative and mess up the flow of the film.
I think it's a good thing, not a bad thing. I think it is a case of if we start being like, let's have a long conversation with Josh Brolin and his wife, and let's have a, let's really delve into this, and let's watch Marcus talk to a million different parents about each of their problems.
Then you've got too many irons in the fire.
And it just becomes, I think it's what's good about this is that he streamlines it very much to be, this is their story. You're only really getting from their perspective. I mean, Archer's, to be fair, I feel like slightly, but the point in the story we're seeing Archer, him and his wife are basically like, don't see, like, you get that just from a little scene, part of a scene and another part of the scene, that basically they're estranged.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
They're both on very different terms. He is obsessed with working this out. She is at a different stage of almost being like in grieving and kind of almost like, I have to distract myself and I have to move on.
Yeah.
And and it's a very true idea of grief and things like that people are in different places where one person maybe is more stuck on it, the other person is like, I need to distract myself with anything else. I'm not living in your world anymore. You are the one holding us back right now, kind of thing. But again, it has only been a month, so weirdly in that situation, I mean, Archer's still I mean, don't give up too quick.
Yeah, don't be
There's no body.
Yeah, they're gone.
They're not dead. They're not actually fully gone yet. I know in this situation, I mean, that is what you kind of get that feeling of like people start to being like, after a month, the chances are there's a mass grave somewhere. And
she accepted that quicker.
Like. It's part of the audience as well, though. You are sat there going like, are we basically just going to find out there's a bunch of dead kids somewhere?
Yeah.
It's hard in that situation for your mind not to assume that that's going to be the case, because it's like,
I think
gone for a month on is like weird.
I think that like something is going fucking weird with this.
Yeah.
Like and you've got to see the kids again. I was worried we'd get into creepy kids territory. And I've said this on kind of films before, and it was one of the things that didn't really work for me in Take Her Back is I think outside of maybe Salem's Lot, with the bedroom scene and some stuff in the others, I don't really like child. Pick my words carefully. I don't really like child horror. I kind of feel like when they rely on the trope of like the scary ghost kid, the kid that something's not quite right with. I'm always a bit like, it feels like it's a cheap kind of way of getting horror. You're playing on our like paternal instincts to be like, well, we must protect the children.
Yeah.
And it always feels weak. Whereas I feel like the way they used the kids in this was really well done. When we first saw them in the basement, that reveal where James goes down and then they all kind of turn around at him, I was like, oh fucking hell, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And then you don't really see them until the end, and I really liked that.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that literally, based on the marketing as well, it felt like we were getting much more of a creepy kid film.
It did.
Like he doesn't even dwell on what is one of the creepiest, like that thing of the kids running off into the, is extremely creepy.
Yeah, it's fucking mental.
Going into this film, I expected way more of him, and he just kind of goes, yeah, so that's that. Let's move on.
And maybe that's playing with our expectations, because we are expecting the film to be about the immediate aftermath, but almost jumping ahead to, like you said, the point where people are like, the police will sort it.
Yeah,
like
that's
people
why
are bored of it.
It's clever that it's a good idea to move away from a lot of that stuff, because one, it's expected and it's what everyone's already seen, and you can watch a million thriller films about things like this where that is the case, and you're right in the middle of it, and right in that is everything has to happen now. But a lot more of the emotional grieving, the questions, the blaming comes later, when people are like, everything's settled and they're still trying to work things out, and those kind of things. It's one of those bits where it's like when people start to feel real desperation that nothing has come their way, kind of thing. And that's where he's gone to that point, instead of the early point when it's higher but newer kind of thing. But it feels like there's still a chance. This is almost at the point when it feels like there's no chance. We're done. And the whole town has that feeling, and that's why she's such a pariah, and Lisa, and why everyone's on the same state, and why the police are kind of like, well, you don't do anything, and they feel like they're under scrutiny because they're in this situation that you can't do anything wrong, don't get caught doing this wrong, and Arch is kind of at the end of his kind of thing, and he's kind of burned bridges almost of what it feels like.
But there was a line that I absolutely loved, and that's when Archer is sat with the dad from Halloween 2018. It's the only way. And I felt when we watched it, I said to you, the dad from Halloween 2018. I don't know the actor's name. If you're listening to this podcast, actor who played the dad in Halloween 2018, I apologise. And
that's legally his name.
That's legally his name. He's changed it. And Archer's kind of going like, so like, what's the update? This kind of thing. And then he says, if we got anywhere on the K9 units? I haven't heard anything from the K9 units in a while. And then the dad from Halloween 2018 just goes, that's because they don't report to you.
Yeah.
And he's so matter of a fact about it. And then he does follow up with like, look, I get if it was my kid, I'd be doing the same. But it's that thing of like, this is to use like almost a very real world example, is like, if you like look at Maddie McCann, like there was so much stuff within like the first, like I remember that happening when I was at school.
Yeah.
And there was so much stuff around like the first week, 2 weeks, maybe month of being like, there's a chance we could probably find like Maddie again. This is what's happened. This is what's happened. And then it was very quickly. It was like, there's no body. We haven't seen her. And then it turned into, well, who killed her? And it was kind of straight away.
Yeah.
It was that, and it wasn't even like, is she still alive? Like, what's going on? There were loads of like false reports of her being found, but it was almost like people moved on from her being found alive very quick.
Yeah, because once you get to even like several weeks or months, it's like, well, with this much scrutiny around the world or this much scrutiny in a town, who's going to keep them alive?
Yeah,
it's unlikely that they'll still be alive. So that's what it kind of naturally becomes, and that is. What's that? While we're talking about the dad from 2018,
famous actor.
Just to link to because there's not a huge amount that he like necessarily like. I like him in the scenes that he's in with like Paul and stuff like that. And obviously Paul, as a by what is it, Aidan and Enric, I think it is, or something like that.
Is it Alden Ironheart?
Budget Han Solo.
Ironheart? Yeah. I liked him as Han Solo.
I liked him as Han Solo. He's a good actor. He's an underrated actor who like he's been in a fair amount of things. It just feels sadly like everything he's been in has flopped. So it's given him a bad rep almost that he's an actor who's gone from like you were going to be the next big star after Han Solo to
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
Blue Jasmine.
He shows up in a lot of film, a lot of shows. What did I just watch? Oh, Ironheart, the Marvel one. I just watched him in that one recently. So yeah, and again, he's a solid, and he's very good at doing like a mix of serious, but he has this weird kind of sarcasm to him that kind of gives him this underbelly of like, I absolutely understand why he was cast as within Han Solo, because he has that weird Harrison Ford kind of dry humour about him that does work, and it works well as Paul in this film. It makes you weirdly like you like him, even though he makes fucking terrible decisions. Constantly. He is like the bumbling cop in many ways. And talking of Dad from 2018, obviously, as we'll get to that ending part, but Paul dies, which I was very much accepted of anyway, because he cheats with Lisa. This happens early in the film, even though it turns out that he's actually still he's engaged.
He is engaged,
and his wife comes back and realizes that. But she's the police commissioner, whatever the hell he's called.
Commissioner Gordon,
Commissioner Gordon's daughter.
Yes.
So he's not going to live anyway.
Yeah.
So he was going to die anyway. So I think the fact that he dies, it may be sad, but he'd already killed himself anyway. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, from the look the dad gives him when he obviously knows that he cheated on his daughter again, it's like, yeah, you're not going to survive.
Yeah, you're not. You're
fucked anyway.
You punched a drug addict.
This is
on
a
the head.
small town. You're going down anyway, man. If you're not going down, you're dying.
Yeah.
But I do love that. Obviously, when we have his storyline and we have Austin Abrams' story, and they've obviously intertwined.
Yeah.
When he catches the drug and he puts his hand into it, he asks him, "Have you got anything on?" and puts his hand in, and it's needled. That's so good. But it's just how quick the reaction is. Like, fuck, like punching him in the head and then just being like, "Fuck, what did I do?" But I got that. Like, I got that anger. I felt it was weirdly. It was completely justified in many ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he asked him. He clearly cleared with him.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your pocket? All you have to say, dude, is that, and he says no. Really, like, you put your hand in, and you're like needle, and like fucking your head goes fucking all manner of diseases that I could suddenly have from that one needle. His quick son to be like so angry that he fucking punches him in the head feels extremely human moment in my head, to be like, that is the kind of anger that is like, violence is not the answer, but I can't lie. That one quick hit, slap, whatever it is, smashing him to the ground feels very like, he doesn't do more. He doesn't batter him. He doesn't get down to the ground, but he does enough of a punch to clock him out.
And I mean, long-term listeners may know that I used to work in substance misuse, and I was in those very close situations so many times where somebody would hand me a bag full of needles, and usually we have these bins to put them in, and they're solid bins, and you want to take the bag. But I remember just looking in sometimes, and people just giving bags full of needles. Yeah. And one of my colleagues once just took something from a client and got a needle prick injury.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Fuck!" Like, "Oh shit!" And they are literally like, "Yeah, you have to go to hospital straight away."
Yeah.
And you have to do all of that stuff.
And you've got to have all the tests.
You've got to have all the tests. And if you have something like
all the hepatitis, AIDS, all those things, all those things are literally tested, and
something you can't get rid of.
No. It's once it's done, it's like, fuck, one prick of a needle is all it takes for you to suddenly have a lifelong disease.
And you get it
from no one of your own, from someone else's choices. That's a really horrible thing to get your head around. It's not even when diseases are passed sexually or things like that, because part of you can be like, well, I made that choice.
I went raw.
In this situation, it was like, I was literally trying to help someone and I fucking got a disease from it.
Yeah.
That's fucking a horrible situation.
Yeah, it's madness, man. But and then when he stabs him in the head.
Oh my god! Yeah, that was so.
Cringy.
I knew it was. It's coming.
Yeah, of course.
I knew in that scene when he's hiding in that tent and he's like that with the needle, and I was like, it's definitely gonna be. It's gotta be Paul. It's definitely gotta be him who's about to get stabbed with this needle. Because from a comedic point of view,
it has
and from just the way this story played, but from that, it had to be him. And I was like, that one was fully I knew exactly what was coming, but it was exactly what needed to come.
Yeah.
When he gets fucking pricked in the face several times, fucking hell. And again, I guess there's another reason to be the guy was dead anyway.
Yeah.
But no, that's one of those moments of where you have a weird blend of humor mixed in with that, but there was a weird reality to it as well. This, and it's one of those things that works really well in this film, is the fact that you can have all of these. It's that weird blending, and some people might find a weird tonality about it, I guess, with some things, especially Gladys and stuff like that, and the humor, as I said, some people might not be ready or expecting for that, especially the audiences. This is done really well at the box office. People are still flocking to see this film.
Good.
Which is really good. And I think partially, you know, and that's a great win for horror and things like that and original filmmaking. But there will still be a lot of people that will go into this film and be like weirdly like thrown off by the tonality.
Of course, man.
Because again, as I said, it is being sold. It was sold as much more of a mystery thriller than anything else, I would say, and people will be expecting that more kind of thing. But you know, the good thing about it is the fact that one, that for the most part, weirdly, like even those things that throw you off by the end, majority of them not only work but have been made scarier. But also, it's the way that he still grinds.
He still grinds you
He
down.
still grinds it hard. He still grounds it. Like it still feels weirdly like real. Like the belief that someone could do this kind of voodoo, like Gladys does, weirdly still feels like that could be. And until maybe those final kids jumping through windows and like,
not even that,
like I mean it does, but that's the bit when it has the surrealness that starts to be a little bit more like, I don't know what in my head I'm thinking of, like a Edgar Wright or like a Shaun of the Dead.
It does
Hot Fuzz kind of slight overly surrealism in there kind of thing, but and I'm not saying that doesn't work. It weirdly feels like the exact right level of comeuppance of what I want to see.
But I feel like, and even with even with Barbarian, I feel like because it never really goes into that whole like overwhelmingly CGI stuff, it remains slightly grounded. Like you're just yes, you're obviously seeing magic and witchcraft, but the only way in which it's really happening is some hair or some personal belonging around a stick and some woman drawing blood and putting it into a bowl. It's not like, you know, if you were watching something like The Conjuring, you know, we saw the trailers for The Conjuring before, and you're seeing people like, you know, spider walking, and you're seeing people like doing all of this weird CGI stuff.
The Warrens, this all true story. This is what led the Warrens to be lacerated. And like, fuck off. None of that happened to the Warrens.
No, that didn't happen.
This didn't happen, and not even what they probably wrote even included these things. You've just turned this into a franchise that's far from it.
I read some weird stuff about the Warrens.
I know that like there's some real fucked up stuff like all about them and stuff like that. I'm just saying like the way that they show them on film, it just does. I'm pretty sure from what I've heard of stuff about like characters like people like the Warrens, that the stuff they describe actually sounds more weirdly crazy, but still within some kind of a really dark kind of way. Yeah, which is not how those films I felt like. I never felt that the Conjuring films are shown in that way. They feel like a very formulaic kind of supernatural Hollywood way of showing a story that should be a lot grittier and dark. I remember, I think the second Conjurer is more like set in like Britain, London, or something. I know one of them is. And that one felt weirdly slightly because of it. They made it look a little bit more gritty, a little bit more down. That one I remember being like, this is the one I actually like. Yeah. Because this one feels more like that, but it still had those nun moments and stuff like that made it feel too commercialized. Yeah. Like this is what a film feels like when it actually feels more like there's a reality here. Not that Hollywood reality in that weird way.
And it's that thing of like, because it never dips its toe in being like, this is wild CGI. People aren't floating off the ground and lifting things.
There's no blood splattering from a sink in the air. And
there's no like Professor Xavier stuff. It kind of it never jumps that line of you almost not taking it serious. And even with a character like Aunt Gladys, who looks so disarming because you see her and you're like, she's just eccentric. Like the bit when the first time we watched it and she goes into Marcus's house and she turns up at the doorstep and she's all like panting and like out of breath, you're like, this is like weird, but you could imagine some kind of like eccentric old lady doing this. Yeah. And then she comes into the house and she's like, could have a bowl of water to drink from. And I remember we were watching it and I was like, and she says, oh, it's just a weird thing that, you know, it's a weird thing I do. I don't even try and rationalize it anymore. I was almost like, if she came into my house and she was like, can I drink from a bowl of water? I'd be like, it's weird, but yeah, I'll give you a bowl of water. That's fine. it's almost so normal. She's almost so disarming that when you then get to Alex's part, and she comes in and she turns like the family into these kind of like witchcraft zombies, very original old school voodoo.
Yeah,
she becomes so sinister, even though she has this wig and this thing, these tracksuits. She's really sinister.
I think it's because, and again, that visual, I think, has become again like a supernatural trope at this point.
Yeah,
of having this overly, and again, that's from films like Sinister or Conjuring or what's the Insidious.
Yeah,
Insidious has a lot of those kind of visual characters, and I feel like a lot of these supernatural horror films have had a lot of these eccentrically weird looking older characters, or old ladies are these creepy, you know what I mean? We've had a lot of that. The problem is she's used as that device to be this creepy, weird, out of place character in the film. What those other films never do is actually give you the reveal and actually make you understand the character.
Yeah.
So why she looks like that makes sense when you see what she's like and what she visually is thinking. And even though I'd say that she doesn't actually need to slap on as much makeup because she doesn't actually look that bad. Like she does earlier, but I mean, like, she keeps up the very high amount of. Although I do feel that the amount of makeup does lessen if you look in from the first kind of shot you get, which would have been earlier, to the later one. She does decrease the amount of, like, she's glowing in one of the earlier ones, which would have been very early in, like, maybe when she was a little bit iller, to when she's maybe shows up at the door at Marcus's house. It's not quite as caked on as much as when she first walks into the office to see him. It's much more caked on. So again, we've got that kind of, you know, one of those things like, say, like Heath Ledger's Joker, the fact that it deteriorates across the film.
Yeah.
We've got like this where you can see she's adapting to the fact that she's actually getting more youthful and more energy.
Yeah.
From where she looks. I'd still say that she doesn't need as much caking on as she appears, because like when she takes it off, she doesn't actually look that bad, but that's her thing. She wants to be this, has this weird representation she wants to show off. But yeah, her visual, I think it's because at first she seems so out of place and so weird, and as soon as we actually get to weirdly see her do the whole voodoo with Marcus, and that happens, she becomes scary.
Yeah.
When we get to see Alex's side of the story, she's not only becomes scary, but we get an actual understanding of her, and we get an understanding of what it is. And that's what none of those other ones do. They just use them as the scary visual.
Yeah.
And they never delve any deeper than that. And this is what makes them an interesting thing. It's like taking that supernatural creature that's chasing them and actually giving them some story and some reason to be. And a lot of supernatural ones, not to say that this is a fully supernatural, it is, but, you know, not in the same way.
Yeah. But
those films just use them as scary visuals, and just, a long tale ago about this woman who was this and
yeah, she was that.
There's no way that they ground it in the world around them like they do with Alex to make it feel like she's an actual threat and there's actual stakes and there's actual things. Those things just always feel like, yeah, well, this is a horror film, so of course you're all in danger, but we need something actually to make us feel like this child and the child abuse that's going on here, and the way that she's using him and the way that she's holding. And, you know, like the fork scene, for instance, is fucking... Not only is it absolutely brutal, but it's the way that it's manipulating a child that makes it feel worse.
And, I mean, before I say the next point, this is something that Anna noticed, and I didn't clock, and I think you probably did. But did you notice that how kind of visually similar Aunt Gladys was to the mother in Barbarian? They were both kind of like mostly bold, like older looking women.
I know based on the thing, but I didn't, because to be honest, I've only seen Barbarian once, so it didn't clock in my mind. Like I was like, so no, it didn't clock for me either.
But I'm kind of speaking about Aunt Gladys.
Some weird link there.
Yeah, maybe. He has some odd fetish.
Yeah.
But something else that I picked up...
I mean, like, in the same universe.
I'm just Zach Creggers beating off while watching it. Is this thing of, like, you also don't know how, like, you don't know much about Aunt Gladys, but you get bits and pieces like, you don't know how old she is, but the fact that she said, like, he's, you know, they've come down with a touch of consumption. Like, I'd always heard of, like, consumption and being something that they got back in the Victorian age, you know?
I love it when Benedict asks that question, like, what is it?
Is it tuberculosis?
Yeah.
And it is, it's TB. But it's that thing that just makes me think, like, is she like hundreds of years old and she's just feeding on the life force of children?
Yeah.
And then another thing makes me think, like, is she even related to this family? Or has she just voodooed her way in as a way of being like, I'm ill, I haven't seen you for years. You know, can I?
I think with her character, I think it's quite easy to assume that, like, she's like, how many people have, like, oh, that's my aunt, that's my uncle. This do they have any relation to you? Fuck no.
Well, she's her
her mother's aunt, isn't she? Her mother's sister is what she is described.
Well, that's what she says.
She never says sister. She just says she's the aunt and she's related to her mother's side.
She says to Alex's family that she is Alex's mum's aunt.
Yeah.
And they haven't seen each other for a long time. She didn't come when the wedding for them to get married. She hasn't seen Alex since he was a baby. So you're like,
wasn't her mum dead? Didn't she say about them not being at the funeral either?
Maybe I can't remember.
I think it was something like that.
But then also,
which again gives another.
Yeah. But then she also says to I keep wanting to say Benedict Wong, the character. Is that the actor?
You're right.
Yeah, that's the actor.
Wong makes it right.
Yeah. She says to him that she is her sister, not that she's her mum is aunt. She's like, I'm her sister, and I'm here to look after the family. So you kind of get like a thing of, like, just how related are you to this family?
Yeah.
Or have you just identified that, like, this is a way you can.
But that's why it feels like she is something that has been around for a very long time and can easily just weave her way into these kind of family ideas, or the idea that she's been around so long that they're just like, yeah, she's like that part of the family, isn't she? She's this person, or things like that.
Yeah.
But she could also be like, is she actually her sister, or is she like just the person that's been like, she's been around forever, so she's like, and this isn't she? She's that's person. She just weaved her way in, kind of thing. But again, it could be just pure, like, she's just manipulated and voodooed.
Maybe. And I like the ambiguity of it.
Yeah. I think she is a great villain in this film.
Yeah.
Like, that scene, I think that scene with Marcus in the kitchen is such the way that she so easily just, like, does those bits of, like, the hair and the way that she's wrapping it, like, effortlessly, and just, you know, the way she just brutality. Like snap, drop, and just like what starts happening, and she's just not bothered. Like, she's done this so many times and it's happened so much that she has no interest. Like, she doesn't care. Like, people's lives are nothing but playthings to her.
Well,
like,
even to Alex's family.
Yeah.
If that is her relation, she just comes in and just just fucking takes them over, and then it's like puts the forks in their face and it's like, I can make them eat each other if I want to. You know, it's just like so brutal.
And it just is. It's a supernatural explanation for how these children have gone missing and things like that. But it's weirdly that, you know, because in so many of these situations, I guess you've got so used to like a thriller that is like properly grounded, like reality.
Yeah.
Of like, oh shit, we found a basement full of dead children. Serial killer. Someone's been keeping them. You know, you knew there had to be. This wasn't like kids running out of the house is not just going to happen. You know, we spiked them all with LSD.
Yeah, we LSD for kids.
And we just, you know what I mean? We spiked them and we set an alarm for 2:16 and they ran out at 2:17. We'd trained them in class, you know. Lisa was the one that did this, you know. She'd been training them for weeks in class like a Pavlov's dog. Like every time it went off, like,
they just run.
Yeah, so that when the siren went off, they all ran to her house and then she just slaughtered them one by one. But you got so used to that kind of one, but the problem is those always feel, you know, expected but underwhelming. And, you know, it's not that this one isn't. I, you know, got a very, you know, I think everyone, when they saw the children running and stuff, like I said earlier about the Pied Piper, that was the running theory, and this kind of is that in many ways.
In a way.
But the way that we show Gladys, and we go through Alex's story, and we go through this story of not just what, like, explaining what happened in the town, but him like feeding the kids and him feeding his parents, and through the lens of a child doing all these things and the abuse that he's kind of getting from Gladys, it makes this feel like you're somewhat getting that grounded reality of like what would happen to the children anyway. You know, what would happen to children when they are like taken and abused and controlled. You get that through the lens of Alex. Then, you know, we get this supernatural element of how she did it. And I don't know why. And it's one of those like sticking points where some people who were expecting this to just be a standard mystery thriller and wouldn't have got that would be a little bit like, what the fuck?
Yeah, maybe.
But it does make it stand out as something very different. And like, I just think the whole, you know, the way it is shown and the way they fill in those gaps in the story just feels so natural. And so, so effortlessly, like, yes, that feels weirdly right. Like, this is exactly how this all makes sense and this is what's happened. That, you know, I don't know, it worked on a level that I think a lot of filmmakers could have tried to pull something like this off and it wouldn't have worked. It would have just been like, either wouldn't have shown it in the right way, or again, that whole debate that I've seen about the linear, non-linear, you know, again, I also think that just showing that and then following this in a normal structure of film and then getting to that wouldn't have worked as well, because it would have been there wouldn't have been all these weird little gaps in the story that then get filled in at the end that makes it feel more like you're completing the story. Yeah. Whereas if you've already got a lot of little gaps, but you just follow it in a standard thread, and then it turns out that Gladys is this, and then, oh no, she will seem like a very, like, I don't know, mustache twirling, your standard kind of, here you are, diabolical person. Whereas we follow two different perspectives where we get to see how evil she is, and then we get to see this deeper rootedness of this evil. Yeah. Not just like, here I am, I've got the kids, oh, come and fight me, oh yes, I did this, I did that, which could have been another way to show it, and then would have felt like, oh, what the fuck. Whereas, because we got several points of her being so like, oh, she seems really weird, she seems off, fucking hell, that's evil. Yeah. Jesus Christ, what? And then then we get to slow build with Alex to see just how evil she really is. You feel like you know her so well by the end that you're like, not only do you know she needs this comeuppance, but you feel like you've learned an entire character's like almost ethos and backgrounds that you're like, fucking hell, like, she is pure evil and this works within this film perfectly. Yeah, and I feel like the way in which the narrative structure is told, you almost begin to prepare yourself for something weird and some weird explanation and the third act, because it, like you said, if it was just a linear film and then it was revealed that Aunt Gladys was this kind of witch and that she was doing it voodoo style, you'd probably be a bit like, let's not explain too well, it's a bit underwhelming. But instead, I felt like you get Lisa Gandhi, and it does seem as if it's going to be a very linear film, and then it switches to Archer, and you get kind of like, okay, like why was Marcus like attacking her like that? And then you get a little bit with him, and then you get I think then it's Paul, and then you get kind of like, you get to see Paul's side of the day, and then it gets to James, and you're like, okay, like, you've known that the house is something to do with it, and it's something weird, and then almost you find out that the kids are in the house, and you almost expect that to be like the end of the film. You don't expect to find that out maybe halfway through, because then you're like, okay, I know the kids are there, but why are the kids there? Why are the parents like this? Why is everything? And then you get Marcus's, which then kind of explains, like, which brings Gladys in, but you bring her in kind of towards the end of the story almost. And like you said, you see how kind of like casually brutal she is, and you get what's happened, but then you get to see how it happened, and then you get to see the conclusion, and it's told so interestingly that it's almost like, you know when they like say you boil a frog in water, and it kind of gradually increases in the weirdness, that by the time you get the reveal, you're like, yeah, I accept this weirdness, as opposed to if it was a straight-laced thriller and with some, sprinkling of horror, and then you're like, oh, this is a witchcraft film.
it would feel like a real big jarring kind of change.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And that's what makes it work so well as this, you know, like I said last time, whatever it's called, American black comedy mystery thriller horror.
Yeah, it's
like,
a weird thing.
And it's the fact that, yes, all of those things actually are there.
Appropriate.
You know, they all work, and it doesn't feel like a major tonal mishmash, though. It feels like you get to have the stuff you love about a thriller mystery. You get to have a little sprinkling of black comedy, which you enjoy, but it doesn't feel like, you know, it has, you know, again, a questionable maybe one or two, but it doesn't have enough that it fully takes you out of the film. And it still has enough sprinkling of horror, especially with the suspense and tension. You know, that's the bigger part here.
Yeah.
Not so much full-on brutal graphic horror, but we get that towards the end. You know, Marcus caving in the skulls, you know, that brutality, you know, other characters fighting, you know, and all building into that third act. I mean, the third act is the main, you know, we've talked through the thing. You know, a lot of the early ones like Julie and stuff like that, there's not so much to pick apart there, because it very much needs later on. That one, we talked more about that in like the spoiler free, because there was more to talk about there. And same with, you know, parts of like Paul's and stuff like that in, you know, Austin Abrams. We talked about the part when he's in the house, James's character. But it is very much more when we get into that like Alex's story and we start to like see what's happened with all of this. You know, some of those like brutalist scenes where she's making the concoctions and, you know, she's controlling people, when she brings all the kids to the house, when she's asked him to go and get one item from each of the child, and he takes all of the nameplates that they've all made personally in class. You know, it all feels very like dark, that you're watching this weird like moment happen, and the fact that you just see them start to come in, and the fact that Alex is being kind of led to and controlled to have to, you know, do this. Yeah. But when we get to that kind of shit crazy third act, when Lisa and Archer go into the house. Oh yeah. And we get that, you know, this contains not only some like madly, you know, when we get where she basically makes it so that James attacks, you know, Archer. Yeah. And so that Paul attacks Lisa, you know, a bit more personal there, where, you know, they've only recently fucked. Yeah. You know? Been pounding. And they've got their long-term kind of friends as well, you know, he's very much been a weird, like, maybe not totally healthy relationship there for them. But, you know, there are some scenes that really stand out. One, like when we've got Alex's parents chasing him through the house.
Well, when they're stood by the door,
and she's like blocking it for her.
And she's like, don't step over the salt. And then it happens, and you get the ones downstairs, which kind of just prelaces just how horrid it's got to be, because like you're watching it and you know that they've got to jump, and you know that they've got to do it, and you're like, oh god, don't let it happen. And then it happens, and you're like, fucking hell, you know. But it's great.
It is. I mean, the brutality, you know, the eyes changing on Paul when he's like literally strangling Lisa against this fucking
potato peeler.
Oh fuck yeah, face. When she slices
just twice, and it's
she takes some damage as well, doesn't I swear she took some to her hand or so. But yeah, the way she gets like thing and that like popping eye thing, which, you know, it is a weird creepy element to have this like almost like they have to stare, so their eyes almost bulge because they're like they can't take focus off what they're after, but they have to get it. Yeah, they are weaponized. You know, although, you know, it works really well and really like creepily, and it has that horrible like that body horror of the peeling is gross. Although I fucking love the James versus Archer, purely because it is fucking funny. It's like it's that use of humor, because again though it's humor that's real, because it's like if you put Austin Abrams against Josh Brolin,
he's got a battle.
Josh Brolin's gonna fucking destroy him. Every time he runs in and he's like lobbing him across the room, and he's like, you little fucker.
It was so funny.
Like, it is. I think one, because, you know, even though that is not true, that Josh Brolin actually has done quite a lot of lighthearted, more like somewhat comedic or kind of lighthearted more films. There's still something about Josh Brolin that you look at him and go, this dude is like, this dude is a serious like hard man. Yeah, he does, you know, he's like, I think it's, what's it, Men in Black 3, he played Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
And he's got that Tommy Lee Jones about him, where Tommy Lee Jones, you see him and you think this dude is a serious motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, he ain't laughing at your jokes. And that's kind of what you're looking at with Archie.
And what did he tell Jim Carrey on the set of the Batman film together? He was like, I can't abide your nonsense.
Yeah, I can't abide
your
your
foolishness or something.
Yeah.
I was like, fucking hell.
He's the fucking Riddler, man.
Yeah, he's the Riddler. And it's Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Like,
yeah,
you're wearing like a pink leopard print suit.
Yeah, you're like
what are you on about?
Your costume's more ridiculous than his.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but that's what I mean. But it's that having that, and I absolutely love that. But I think part of why I want to just watch Weapons again is just to watch Austin Abrams get thrown around
all over
by Josh Brolin.
Luckily,
I could watch that on a loop.
Luckily, you said you didn't want to see him get tossed off by Josh Brolin. That's another film, I'm sure.
That's a completely different film.
Yeah. Young Twink versus Badly Man. That's probably out there.
That one lives in people's dreams.
That one does. Yeah, that one does.
But yeah, even that, the way like he attacks him and appears and like grabs around him. And the fact that, you know, and it is, like, you follow these characters, and Austin Abrams' character, you know, the drug dealer, but weirdly his, you know, you get to see the side of addiction, which I think is shown quite well, but you also get the fact that you're like, but at the same time, he's for addiction, but, you know, and he's out for himself, and all these characters have a really, like, horrible side to them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hide the fact that these are not perfect people, and some of them are worse than perfect people.
Yeah.
And also he is, but through the lens of addiction, he's very much like that. But you still have a feeling like he's not a completely bad person, so it still feels bad when they're like shot, or wiped out, or you know when Lisa has to kill Paul in order to stop this kind of thing. You still feel bad because he's given enough time to. These are the characters we've followed. You know, and it's both good that not all these characters actually make it out, because that would feel wrong.
Yeah, of
you
course.
know, but it's also the fact that they're not actually killed in, like, you know, apart from Marcus's husband.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. But they're not all killed in this like very like monster kills them. You know what I mean? Or the kids rip them apart, or Gladys actually kills them. They're actually just killed personally, like. Things like that kind of weirdly grounds it. It could have been much more violent. He could have found much more sickening ways to do it. But he goes with like what's almost true to the characters, and making these characters have to do this kind of thing. That they have to cross a line that they feel like they shouldn't have to cross.
Yeah. Which works, because I also feel like if he blew his beans too early, then you kind of, you know, it works because the most violent kill is the crescendo, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and Gladys gets the most violent one, and it has a scene that is really hilarious in the lead up, with all of the kids just suddenly chasing her, jumping through the windows and running through people's houses,
smashing through, and like,
and then the guy like mowing his lawn, and he looks and he sees her run, and then all the kids running, and it feels really funny.
Yeah.
And then they get her, and you're like, oh, they're just gonna show like the swarm, but instead she gets fucking torn apart.
Yeah, you get to see kids literally clearing parts of body parts apart, and it is full on violent. And like that is the human that was the Shaun of the Dead in my head going like that is a very like very much leaning into that like surrealist kind of the humor of it all. But it works so well. It's such a both funny, enjoyable, like comeuppance kind of scene that you get to part of that. I also love the fact that it's like they're freaked out by the kids, but when Josh Brolin, when the man walks into the house, that's when they're like, fucking hell!
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, there's a man in our. These kids have just like ran through the house, but when one man runs through the house, they're like, fucking hell!
There's an absolute unit.
Yeah,
just walks through a house. Oh god, something's going on. Yeah, it's such a good film, man.
It is. It's got so much like works for it. It's, as I said, it's not. I don't, and I think maybe, you know, like over time maybe things might get more noticed, and yes, there are plot holes, and there are one or two scenes I think don't totally work. You know, as with any film, some are a bit like maybe ridiculous. One, Josh Brolin's very on the nose weapon in the sky with the arm is I think is a one too far. I guess a dream sequence, but it just felt a bit too like.
Well, I was trying to think what's the symbolism behind it, and then I was like, it literally just means The kids are weapons.
The 217, like the children that were missing at 217, like they are the weapons. Like this is your message in the sky. They are the weapons. Think about it.
It was
what
very
does
on
this
the
mean?
nose.
It's very. I don't know why. Just out of all those, that was like, and that's like the most CGI scene in the entire film. And it was just the one when I was just like, nah. Like I don't think I actually really. I think that was only one of those creepy onesies where I like the bit when his son's in bed, but the most of that one nightmare sequence was one of the only like ones in the film where I felt like I didn't actually enjoy that out of the vast majority of all of those scenes. Like I like Julia Garner's one.
Yeah,
schools. But yeah, his in the bedroom was the only one where it does have a good jump in it, and the bit with the kid when he's actually in the bed I thought worked.
That was
him like going out onto the thing and seeing all of them chasing through and stuff like that. I liked the way it showed the character, the way the brain was working. It just overall wasn't the most effective one, where I think parts of it were going to be scarier than they actually came across maybe. But these are very nitpicks, like very minor kind of things that kind of come out of this. And I think we've talked about a range of things in there. It's very hard with this film to just pick, like we could talk for hours going through every single split scene and part of those parts. But yeah, there's a good range of humour, gore that is enjoyable about this film. And we also talked last time about what Zach Creggers doing next.
Yeah.
And that I know there are two projects that he's got working with. Now apparently there's 3 things that are in the pipeline, but one of them's not actually concrete. But we talked about Resident Evil as well. Is that correct? And I've also heard more about actually what that actually is from the mouth of him himself. I didn't realise he was actually revealing so many details about it. But Austin Abrams is he's the main person.
Yeah.
He's pretty much the only person, because it's not a character from the games.
No, I heard
he's doing a completely original story set within the universe of one person. Basically, if they were going through a place, just like in the early games, he was like, there's no point in telling Leon's story and stuff like that, because that's been told. That's what the games are there for. I think it's a very Fallout is the way that people are kind of looking at them at the moment. Like Fallout was set in the universe of Fallout, but the story is not the story told in the game. And I think that's kind of what he's doing here with Resident Evil. And we talked about the fact that it's like, is that exactly what we want to see from him? It sounds like, and just from the scene in here with James, like that, I can see how that he could actually pull it off. Of how that would work, and I can see how that would be like really creepy and stuff like that, and he's already deep into it, so it's what's coming next. This is next thing.
I still don't know. I wait with bated breath. I love Resident Evil. I liked Welcome to Raccoon City until like the very end, but I still don't think there's been a definitive Resident Evil. I think it's very tricky to do. It's almost like trying to do a Metal Gear Solid film. Like, it's just you can't. I don't think you can capture. You can't capture it. So I don't know how it's got to work.
I think he'll capture the spirit of the idea, and I think it will. It's just the fact that if you remove a lot of those characters, it is a case of like, to people, a lot of those characters are Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So if you make a film without it, it's a really creepy zombie horror, virus film that's set in a thing that has a very feel of Resident Evil, but there will still be a lot of people going like, is this actually Resident Evil? If we're not following this kind of story, or if it's not what it is, kind of there. So that's interesting. But I did say with this film, I felt like it was Zach Creggers compared to Barbarian, where he's got a bit more to play with. He's a bit more open, but he also wanted to flex his muscles and go, I'm more like, I think that this is a film that is very kind of, it's done well because one, it's on an idea that I think a lot of people get drawn to.
Yeah.
Thriller, kids are going missing, mystery. Like, people get drawn in by that. And it's very well marketed. But I do think, yes, there are still those weird and humour and that played into it that general audience might not like. But this is a much more accessible film than Barbarian.
Yeah.
It's a much more bigger audience film. And he's flexing those muscles. And apparently his other next one, which he's working on, is a sci-fi, and not sci-fi horror. So he's flexing away from the horror.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's the other thing with these directors is you wonder how long before they're like, I know I've said that with like Jordan Peele, like they both love horror, but sometimes some of these directors, and it's where horror films get somewhat looked down upon, where they start to be like, I'd kind of like to be seen as also just a generally great director.
Yeah.
And horror directors are great directors, but sadly, I feel like there's a little bit of they need to go away from, if they want to, whatever, if they want to win the awards and win an Oscar, they got to go away from horror to actually win the award, which is sad. Because films like this should be like, and I'd like to hope that actually films like this will be, for those awards, and it's not what they chase, but it is sadly what a lot of directors and things, and what a lot of people think that's what they need to have in order to, be seen as the greatest director ever. You need to have one of these awards, kind of thing. So I'm not surprised that he's going away from it. The other one is that he apparently wrote a script for a Joker and Harley Quinn thing for DC, which isn't even officially thing. So like that, but let's stick to the original.
Well, I heard
let's stick to original stuff.
I heard that they were looking, and I don't think Zach Creggers is necessarily involved in it, but they were looking at doing a prequel for Aunt Gladys.
Yes.
And I was just thinking, let's not.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody needs an origin story.
Apparently it's a friend of his who is a writer who came up with the idea and is the one that's kind of pitched it, and obviously, and loads of people I've seen online, loads of people going, can things not just be left as an original idea? We don't need to delve, and I think majority, hopefully, but this is the problem of where he's made a film with a studio where they can go around and go, well, we want to make more films.
Yeah.
And he can go, well, I don't want to make more films.
You gave us the character.
If I was him and he has the control to do so, I would implore that you just leave something good as something good.
Yeah.
And not feel like you have to tell. I don't want to know any more about her. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I want it left open.
Ambiguous.
I don't really, it could be great, but from the sounds of his schedule, he's not going to be the one directing it, so I also don't think we need that universe expanded.
Yeah.
We don't need a weapons universe.
No.
We don't need like the Barbarian linked to weapons to be this
crossover
MCU.
Yeah, we don't need
where Gladys returns at the end of the next
ZCU.
Whatever he makes next.
Yeah, we don't need that.
We don't need all of this shit.
No, we don't need need a ZCU. We don't need any of that.
No.
Just let a good thing be a good thing.
But I think the main thing out of this is the idea that yes, Zach Cregger is pretty much the 2 for 2 with his directing films.
Definitely.
I mean, I did actually find out he did actually direct a film before this, but it wasn't. It was like learning the craft.
No,
apparently that one wasn't very good. It wasn't a horror film. It was some kind of he coded. It was like a comedy kind of film. He coded it with someone else, kind of thing. So let's just say that of his own main films, he's 2 for 2.
Zach Miss March,
yes,
2009.
Yes, so not so well received. I don't believe that one was, or maybe it was. I don't know. But of his own films, it's nice to see, and I do think that Barbarian and this are going to go down as absolute classics, and I think that this one is going to build a real following.
I think it's got a kick. Yeah. I mean, not to say that it's got a kickstart, because I think Barbarian really did that, but I think this is going to give him a lot more of that mass market appeal.
When you get the double, when you get two, the first one can sometimes be seen. There's been plenty of directors who made like a debut with a really good one, and then the next one was like, Or there's been ones that made a really good debut, and then they went off and decided to make like a superhero film. And then they're like, "What the fuck did you do that? You ruined your cred, man."
Yeah.
Or they went off and made a similar kind of studio film, and like how many times I've heard that story of like, "Oh, they made this great film." Then the studio went, "That's really good. I'm going to offer you this."
Yeah.
And then when that didn't work out because you went from a small film to this big film,
it just didn't work.
And it didn't work. Everyone was like, "Yeah." The problem is Hollywood doesn't give a shit anymore.
And that might be my worry with Resident Evil, man.
Yeah. I think at the same time, I think this might have built enough cred that people will actually go to see that one
potentially,
and it will also be enough. Although I would say at the same time, I'm surprised that Austin Abrams, he's a good actor. So he deserves the cred, but I also surprised that the studio don't go, "Have you heard of Timothy Chalamet?"
Yeah, have you heard of Timothy
Chalamet? Or have you heard of Tom Holland?
You can have
them
Tom
trying to be slightly bigger.
Have you heard of Pedro Pascal?
He's meant to be like a 20-something kid who gets drawn into this thing. Pedro Pascal.
He can
play 20.
He can play 20.
He's 50.
But he can play 20. We can de-age him.
Yeah, but that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a moment surprised that they don't start being like, maybe aim for a big actor. But
yeah,
I like the idea that someone like Austin Abrams, who's done solid work, gets the chance to do something where people might look at this.
I just don't know if I'm hopeful because of I've been stung before,
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else to say before we wrap it up?
No, I think we've gone on for a solid amount of time on weapons. We both are obviously quite glowing on it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that people have watched the film because this is our spoiler-filled review. If somehow you haven't, then we hope you enjoyed us telling you what happened in Weapons.
You spoiled it for yourself.
You spoiled it
You're
for
an
yourself.
idiot.
You are a fool. But come and let us know your thoughts on Weapons. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. Make sure that you scroll and you make sure you've hit that subscribe button. I listen to podcasts and forget to subscribe all the time. So now my new thing is to make sure that I hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. I'm not sure whether we have music or not because we've had some technical problems here at CMTH HQ. However, what I will do just in case is I'll say, take it away, boys, play us out.
Cut to black.